Alrighty, guys. I'm just going to take you through the most relevant settings for CA Breakout. Now, what I'll suggest you do also, though, is watch all the videos on Cost Averager, because CA Breakout is simply, the next evolution of Cost Averager. So, just for the moment, I'm not going to go through all the settings in detail because you can just watch those Cost Averager videos to get a handle on all of that. Right at the moment, we're in a little bit of a mess as far as videos explaining CA Breakout goes, simply because I've been pumping out so many improvements with it recently that I haven't had time to do the videos, but also it's been pointless because it's evolving quite quickly at the moment. But there's a lot of settings, but don't let that scare you off too much. Now, I'll quickly whiz through what they are roughly, and then I'll show you with an example on the back test exactly how that plays out. All right, so you can set a daily profit target, and that's just going to be based off your equity. So if your equity increases by $300 from your daily starting balance, then it will close all your trades and stop trading for the day. That's simply what that is, and that's just working off your equity, as I said, so all the pairs you have trading, not off any one particular pair. You can set how many trades it will open. So how this software works is it'll open up an initial trade if the requirements are met, and then hopefully that just goes into profit and you take money. If not, if the market goes against you, it can open up multiple positions to cost average into position. So you can set how many trades it can open in that as the market goes against you. And, 3 or 4 is what I usually run at. Now, one of the main requirements for an initial trade to open is it needs 3 different time frame trends to line up. But if you wish to override that, let's say you might have, so what it needs is the 15-minute, the 1 hour, and the 4-hour trends to be all going the same way. Let's say you had the 15 and the 1 hour lined up, but the 4-hour wasn't, and you decided you really wanted to have the software trade, you can override that by either typing in buy or typing in sell. And they do have to be in capital letters. So you just type that in and it will trade in that direction. All the other requirements will still need to be met, but once they do, then it will either do a buy or a sell depending on what you type in there. This is the breakout part of CA Breakout, and by default, this is set at true. And so it's going to need not only the trends to line up, but then the market's going to need to break out of the most recent 5-minute range. And then it will open up the initial trade. That 5-minute range breakout is also required for all of the cost averaging trades too. But you can override the initial trade breakout. So if everything's lined up and looking good to you and you want to have a little bit more manual input, you can simply turn that to false, and that initial trade breakout will no longer be required. We have 2 different types of trailing stop losses at the moment. This is the original one we've always had, and it's just a normal trailing stop loss, and it will work on every trade that you have opened. And in this case, it's trailing behind it 400 points. Now, you can also set what level you want that trailing stop loss to set at. So if you had 3 trades open, but you only wanted to work on the most recent one, you could just put 3 in here. And so it's not going to work on the first trade, the second trade, but the trailing stop loss will work on the third one. And if you just leave it at 0, then it's going to work on every single trade. And now another option we have is the first trade trailing stop loss. So if you just want a trailing stop loss just to work on the initial trade, then you can set a distance there. You know, say if you wanted that to be 200 points, for example, you just do that. And then even if you had 4 trades open, it's not going to work on the 4th one, the 3rd one, or the 2nd one. It'll only work on the 1st one. And that's simply because there are a few strategies that I use it with, and a few different ways, depending on yourself, that might be handy for. But you'll see there'll be the templates that come with the software. They'll already be set. Most of the time in those templates, I'm not using that. I'm not using the trailing stop loss at all. There may still be a couple where I'm using the first trade trailing stop loss, but you'll see what they are. And once you have a play with it, you'll see, and you'll fine tune it to suit yourself. Now, the next few settings are all covered in the cost averages software, but I'll just race through them quickly. The trade gap in points, you can set, if you want all your trades to be, or at least your first 2 trades to be exactly 20 pips apart or 200 points apart, you would just type that in there. That was originally how the software was, and I've left it there just to give you more options. But what we mostly do now is use the auto trade gap factor, and that's based off the average daily range of each particular pair. So if the average daily range of that pair you're trading was 100 pips, and you had this set at 1, then all the trades are going to be 100 points apart. Okay, so if it's 100 pips, the daily range, average daily range, then a trade gap factor of 1 will give you a distance between the trades of 100 points. But yeah, generally I'm using an auto trade gap factor of 1.5, and the trade gap multiplier, that's just meaning that, so that the first and second trades would be, in that case, would be 150 points apart, and the second and third trades would be 150 multiplied by 1.2. So the trades are getting further and further apart. And that was the original cost averager. We used to open up a lot more positions than just 3 or 4. And so that was a handy way of spacing the trades out and reducing drawdown. But as I said, they're all in the cost averager videos. And you can also choose to keep your first few trades the same distance apart and have the multiplier, this one here, the multiplier start, only on the 3rd trade or the 4th trade or whatever you like. Okay, moving on from there. So that's determining how far apart the trades will be placed. So it's still going to need, so the market's going to have to be that distance away from the last trade. Plus it will also have to break out of the 5-minute range. Now, the max gap factor, so whatever this distance calculates out to be, this one here will, and I don't usually have it set at 10, I'll have it set at 3 or 4. If the market got 4 times that calculated distance away from the last trade, it would open up a trade even without it breaking out of that 5-minute range. Now, you can either use that or not use that. I tend to use it at 4. If the market's moved that far away from the first trade, then the trend's probably changed anyway, and you probably decided to get out of them anyway. Moving on to the next ones, we've got the input minimum profit. So this one's set at $35. And so once it opens up a trade, if it's just got 1 trade open it's going to be aiming to take a $35 profit. Now, there will be a couple of other factors with some profit locks that I'll talk about shortly, but it's aiming for $35. So two things can happen. It can either go into profit until it gets to $35 and then that trade will close and you'll take that profit, or it will retrace and hit one of the profit lock features and you'll take a smaller profit. Or the market will keep going against you until it opens up a second trade. Minimum profit multiplier. So with this set of 2, what it's going to do is if you've just got one trade open, it's aiming for $35 profit. If a second trade opens, because we've got this set at a multiplier set at 2, it's going to be aiming for a combined profit of $70. Max profit is set at 200. So, so the multiplier would be one trade open aiming for 35, 2 trades open, it would be aiming for 70, 3 trades open, it would be aiming for 140, and 4 trades open, it would be aiming for 280, except that we've limited the maximum profit at 200. So even if there was 4 trades open, it would still take profit at $200. We have a max loss setting. And it's important to put the minus sign in here. So minus $500 in this case. So if all the trades opened on this particular pair got into $500 of drawdown, then it's going to close them all out and you would take a $500 loss. So that's essentially an equity protection feature. You don't need to worry about what a magic number is. That's just how the software identifies its trades. Likewise, just a comment. And input volumes, just your lot size. So we have a starting lot size. The first trade will be 0.15. And then each extra trade, cost averaging trades, I'll have to change that so it says CA Breakout. And so the first trade will be 0.15. And using the volume multiplier, you may or may not wish to use a multiplier. If you don't wish to use it, you just set it at 1. But at 1 point, let's say if we were to set it at 2, then the first trade would be 0.15. The second trade would be 0.3. So it's multiplying this, and then the next one would be 0.45 and then 0.6. So it is possible to turn this onto a full-blown martingale type strategy, but generally we want to keep the multiplier level down very, very low because martingale is not a good long-term strategy at all. But having a slight increase in the lot sizes on the cost average trades can give you a big advantage. And you can set a start level for the multiplier. So if I had that set at 2, but I had the multiplier set at 3, the start level set at 3, then first trade would be 0.15, second trade would be second trade would also be 0.15, but then the third trade would go up to 0.3. We just have a spread filter, which you can fine tune to suit your broker or everything, but 30 is going to be fine as a starting level for all Forex pairs, except some of the really exotic ones. But then if you want to fine tune that down to suit your broker, you can. We have a start hour and minute time, a start hour and start minute time. So this is all based off the market watch time. So you don't have to worry about your local time zone or your broker time zone or anything like that. It's all off the market watch. And the start of each trading day market watch time is always 00 hours. And if we have it set here like this, the software is not going to start trading until 1 hour and 0 minutes after the market opens. So once market watch time gets to 0100 hours, it will start trading. Or at least start looking for initial trades. And then we have a start and an end hour and minute time as well. they're not times that I generally use. It's just set there at the moment for that. ADR days. So as I said, some of the calculations like your trade gap factor and that are based off the average daily range. And you can set how many days you want that average daily range to be based off. And by default, it's just set at 20. We have a close all hour and minute as well. So if you, for whatever reason, you might want all your trades to be closed out at a certain time. Perhaps you're coming up to a red folder event or something and you can't be there to monitor it yourself. Let's say there was a red folder event occurring at 1500 hours. You could just put this in at 14:45, and that way, if the software hadn't turned it into a profit and closed it out at this time, it would close those trades anyway, and you would take whatever profit or loss that happened to be in at the time. So that's what I don't use that feature a lot because I keep a good eye on when red folder events are occurring, and I don't trade those pairs if there's a red folder event looming. You can set the max pairs that you want it to trade. So I tend to run this software on multiple pairs at once, so 10 or more pairs at once. But with this setting, it will never trade more than 4 at any one time. Or, change that to whatever you like. Correlated pairs. Now, this is to stop the software trading too many closely correlated pairs at once. So as a rough example, what a correlated pair is, it's just simply two different pairs that tend to move in the same direction as each other. And a good example of that would be, Great British Pound, Great British Pound paired with the Japanese yen, and the US dollar paired with the Japanese yen. And if you're not real familiar with what a correlated pair is, this is just a basic example. Because they're both yen pairs, they will tend to move in a similar direction a lot of the time. So let's say the pair I'm trading at the moment might be the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. Then in the correlated pairs, I might want to type in all of the other yen pairs that I happen to have the software on. Okay, so now if there is already a trade on pound yen, US yen, or euro yen, then the software won't trade on this pair, which in this example I'm saying is Australian dollar against the yen. So that's just a way you can stop it trading too many closely correlated pairs at once. And, you could also add some other AUD pairs in there if you wanted to really make sure. Whether you use that, the templates will have the correlated pairs typed in for you. You may or may not wish to use them. It was quite important with the cost averager version of this software, but with the breakout requirement now, not so important. Although you still want to avoid trading, all, if you had 4 pairs limited to, you wouldn't want them all to be Japanese yen pairs. I mean, it could turn out really good in your favor, but it could also go the other way and you could take a loss on all of them. Because if one goes the wrong way, they all could go the wrong way as well. Anyway, so that's what those are. Now, at the moment, this next section is a little messy, but it should be, they're all part of the template, so you won't have to play with them anyway. But we've got four sets of profit locks, depending on how many trades you have open on that pair. So we've got profit trail 1 and profit trail 1 lock. So these two work in concert together. So if you just have one trade open and it gets into $40 of profit, then it's going to lock in 10. So if the market then retraces and gets back down to 10, it's going to close that trade and you'll take $10 profit. And if you have 2 trades open then it'll lock in $20 of profit when the combined profit of those two trades hits $60. And the same for if you've got 3 trades open or 4 or more trades open, we'll work off this one. So that'll be like your first profit lock for each of those. And then we have a second profit lock, for if you've just got 1 trade open. But we'll just look at this one. So if you've just got 1 trade open, it's going to lock in $10 of profit once it hits $40 profit. And then it will either keep going until it hits your target profit, or it will retrace back and hit your $10 and you'll take a $10 profit. Either way, at this stage, it's a no-risk trade. Then, if you've just got 1 trade open, once it gets into $50 of profit, it's going to lock in $20. And then you've got the second profit lock for if you've got 2 trades open, 3 trades, or 4 or more. Now, these next few settings, actually, these two here, we'll skip this one for the moment. Only trade above, only trade below. By default, it's at $1 million and 0, meaning it's not being used. But if you wanted to set a range that you wanted the software to trade in, then you could. So if we look over here on the chart, if we wanted the market, if the market got above 94.345 and we didn't want it to trade if it got above that, then we just we would just come to here and we would put in 94.345, and now it's only going to trade if the market is below this value. So if the market is below this value, it'll trade. If the market goes above this value, it'll stop trading. And that's just going to work off the initial trade. So if there's already a trade open and the market goes outside of your boundaries here, then it will still be able to open up cost average trades, but it just won't be able to open up the initial trade. So that's just a way you can, and this is only for it. Most people won't use these extra features. Most will just use the default templates. But if you're someone that likes to have a bit more of a manual input, this is one of the ways you can do it. You can set those limits and those ranges, and the software will only trade within that. Then there's a few strategies where that'll come into play, and we can there's a video on these particular settings as well in the playlist, but we can chat about that more at some stage. And now the second peak preference and all of these settings here, they are settings to do with the breakout requirement. Okay, so this is some settings that need to be adjusted from one pair to another, simply because some pairs move more pips, are more volatile, etc., etc. And so we need different settings here. But these are just dealing with how the software calculates the actual breakout of that 5-minute range. So if you would really like to get into this, we'd have to have a bit of a chat about exactly how these work. So what I'm saying is, don't touch these settings. Just leave them as they are in the templates. They really won't need to be touched. They've already been fine-tuned. And I'm happy to chat about exactly how they work, so you can have a play if you want to, but it's really not going to be necessary. Like for example, it's picking a couple of different peaks in the market, and this is one of the ways it can choose which peak is it going to use to determine the top of the range. We can set a limit here, so this just means the software cannot open up more than one trade every 5 minutes. And so when I'm running on the because we're talking about the 5-minute range, I'm just that having it set at 5 just means it won't open up more than one trade per candle, which is, it's going to get a signal to take out a trade based off that 5-minute candle. And if you had this set too low, there is a chance that it could open up multiple trades on that one candle. So that's all that one is. First trade breakout, that just means the market needs to break out of that range by 45 points before it will trade. And then the cost averaging trades only need to break out by 10 points. And the shoulder is just I'll probably remove this setting from the user options because it's always going to want to be on 4. That's just one of the little settings it needs to. So you might not even have that shoulder in your settings by the time you get the software. And candles 40. Also just some of the breakout calculations. Some of them I have run at 40, some at 50. And at the moment, I just haven't fully decided whether I like 40 or 50 better. You can use either. It's not going to make a lot of difference. But as I said, all of these settings are tailored to each pair in the templates. All right, guys. So that's all the settings quickly. It took a bit longer than I wanted to. But I'll just do a quick display on the back tester for you. At the moment, we have, I'll just set these so we're not overriding the trends and we're not using the first trade breakout. And if we start the old back tester here, we can see the range, the top and bottom of the range. That's what those red and blue line is. It's just calculating the top and bottom of this 5-minute range. Just quickly go through everything else. So we've got that start and stop time setting. So it's telling us now that it's the correct time. Let me just stop it and start again. Because we've got it set to start 1 hour after market open. So at the start of the day, it's not the correct time. So that just simply means it's not going to trade because it's not within the time parameters you've set. And 12 bars, 12 candles into this day, we'll see this change to correct time. All right. My back test is a bit slow to start. Oh, I've got it turned off here. All right, so see now it's changed to correct time. That's all that's telling you, whether it's the right time for the software to trade or not. I'll go through the rest of the displays here as well. So this is our 3 time frame trends showing here. So at the moment, the 15-minute trend is a sell, 1 hour is a buy, 4 hours a buy. When these all line up, either sell all sells or all buys, then this red writing will change to green, just as another little visual indication that they're all lined up. Down here, we've just got the average daily range calculation based off 20 days is 86 pips. It's also showing you the highest daily range in the last 20 days. So you can see that the average daily range is 86, but one day it did go all the way up to 216. So significantly larger than the average. And then we've just got how far the market's moved so far today. Now, the software uses the average daily range calculation as part of its internal calculations. But this display is just very handy if you do a bit of manual trading and that yourself. It's a handy little bit of information that you can just quickly access by looking at your chart. Now, we had our daily target set at $300. This is the target we're looking at here. And as your equity goes up and down, you'll see this value change. And essentially, as you make money throughout the day, this will count down from 300 to 0. When it gets to 0, it'll come up in some red writing saying target hit, and the software will stop trading. Floating is just the current floating profit or loss of just this one particular pair. So if you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, however many trades you have open on this pair, then floating will be the combined profit or loss of all the trades open on this one particular pair. And so if we've got our minimum profit target set, in this case, I think we had it set at 35. When the floating gets up to 35, all of those trades will close and you'll take that $35 profit. All right, well, let's just see it take out a trade so you can see the market broke out of that range, but the trends weren't lined up. So that's why it hasn't taken a trade yet. So until these three trends line up, we're not going to get any trades anyway. So we'll just wait for that to happen. Just for those that don't know the MT4 platform, this vertical dotted white line here, it's just indicating the start of each trading day. And so now we're 8 hours into the day. Okay, so now we have all the trends lined up as buyers. So the market now needs to break above that 5-minute range. When it does, it would take out a trade. I should have made sure I knew exactly when it was going to do that, but hopefully it'll go up and break out so we can show you. It broke below the range, but it's looking for buyers at the moment because of the trend. Broke above, but not by enough. It has to break above by 4.45 points, remember? I mean, I haven't fine-tuned it at the moment. This is just the default settings. So there we go. So it broke above by 45 points. So it's taken out its first trade. And now we can see our floating display is changing. So in 6, 7, 8, it's obviously going to jump around all over the place as the market moves, but we can see the trades in profit and the displays in profit. And once the market moves up enough for this to get into $35 of profit, it will close out. Or the market will move down, form a new range, and when it breaks above that, it would take out a second trade. All right, so you can see how that would work. What I'm going to change now is I'm going to override the trends by typing in buy. And we'll start it again. And this time it doesn't matter what the trends are doing. But it's only going to look for buy orders. So all it needs to do to take out a trade now is break above the 5-minute range. If it breaks below, it won't trade because I've typed in to override the trends as a buy. So see now, we're still just back testing on the same day as before, but because it broke above, I mean the the top of the range was down here before. So when it broke above that range, it took out a trade. And previously it didn't take out a trade until about the 9th hour of the day, or only on the first hour now. So you can see the difference that's made. It's allowed it to take out a trade much earlier. Obviously, that doesn't mean it's necessarily a good thing. In this case, we know the market does go up, so it will be a good thing. And once this gets up to $35 of profit, I'll just let this one play out so you can see this trade close out when it hits that $35 profit mark. Now, you would only override the trends or override the breakout if you knew a bit about trading and you're willing to have a bit of a manual input and an oversight on how the software works. If you're someone new to trading, obviously don't change them at all. Anyway, we can see the difference that made. We took out a trade much earlier. It's just not quite going to hit $35. Anyway, we'll stop it again, and we'll just have one quick more look at one more thing. We'll put the trends back on, so we're not going to override the trends, but we will override that initial trade breakout. Okay, so now it's not going to require that 4-hour breakout to trade. So we're still going to have to wait for the trends to line up. But now the instant those trends line up, as long as it's the correct time, then it will just take out that trade. So it shouldn't be much longer, if I remember correctly, and all the trends will line up. And that's all because I'm overriding the 4-hour break, the 5-minute range breakout. Then that's all it's going to need. As soon as they change to 3 buys, we should see a buy order come in. There we go. As soon as they change, we've got a buy order now. Like again, that's not necessarily a good thing. I'm just showing you how the actual range breakout override works there. We've got one other thing that we can just have a little quick look at, I guess. I am going to override the trends, and I'm also going to override the trends, and I'm also going to override the breakout. So it's not going to require any of that. But I am going to... Okay, guys, I think I fixed my issue now. Let's just go through that last little bit of back testing again. And we're just testing out the only trade above and below features. So now we're only going to want it to trade if it goes above 94.1. So when we start the back testing, it shouldn't take out any trades at all until the market gets above 94.1, and then it will trade. It will trade straight away then because we've overridden the trends and the breakout requirement. It's the correct time. It hasn't taken out a trade. It won't take out a trade. once the market gets up about there. There we go. Took out a trade because it's now above 94.1. So that's how that range limiter setting works. Other than that, guys, it's not much else to talk about, really. If you have any questions, in that playlist, there's plenty of videos on, how to download and install the software and all of that. But if you've got any questions, obviously, just sing out. Happy to answer them. Have a good day.